However, since I have subsequent years, I've learned quite a bit about them. The MacArthurs came originally from Scotland to, I believe, the Carolinas around 1730, 1750. I do happen to know that they served in ranger companies during the American Revolution, and subsequently became United Empire Loyalists and were given land grants in what is known as Glengarry County. A peculiar circumstance, I happened to see the original in Upper Canada Village, where they turn over the roll of the individual grants of these that happened to be the MacArthur grant at the time I was there. It was just a complete and utter fluke. He, I believe, was a captain at a ranger company, and his two sons were lieutenants, and either the same or another company. My grandfather, MacArthur, I knew nothing of. I didn't even realize when I was a young boy, until long after I was really in teens, I guess, that they had lived on St. George Street at 119 St. George Street, which is just below Bloor, and is still there, the house. He was a large lumber dealer. That's all I can tell you. Anything I know about him really is from what I've read. And my mother was the oldest member of the family. She was born in Quebec City, to my surprise. I don't know how that happened to be, and married my father, and as I've mentioned before, she was the backbone of our family for years. My Aunt Edith McGivern, she was the second oldest in the family, and again, I remember her extremely well. She married Lorimer McGivern, William Lorimer McGivern, in I'm not sure, 8, something like that. And had one son, Edmund. Her husband died quite young. He died in Montreal. I'm not sure what he died of, but I know it was associated with varicose veins. That's about all I can say. And I remember my Uncle Alec MacArthur telling me in 1915, I believe it would be, in the First World War, he was going overseas, and he stopped in Montreal and saw him in the hospital there. And he had quite a military history himself. He had served in South Africa with the 1st Canadian Battalion of the Royal Canadian Regiment. That's Edmund's father, as a private, and subsequently went back again after serving his time in South Africa and joined the South African Constabulary, which is a semi-military police force, and he was discharged as a captain about 3 or 4 years later. The Auntie Edie, as we called her, was quite different from the rest of the MacArthurs. She was rather hyper, and she became very deaf, and although she had a lot, she was a very frustrated woman with the way she lived and everything, and she at times could be extremely difficult to get along with, and at other times I think everybody felt a little sorry for her. This deafness was a great curse to her, and she was quite clever in an artistic way. She died of a heart attack when I guess I was about 18 or 19, something like that. Aunt Toddy, or Louise MacArthur, after her father's death, they had lived on at St. George Street for a few years, maybe 10 years or so, and then 10 or 15 years ago, I guess, she and her mother had moved and bought a small house on Rathlin Alley Avenue, where they lived for a few years. I can remember them living there vaguely. I can only remember them moving to Cottingham Street, 246 Cottingham Street, which became a famous haven of the whole family. My grandmother died in, I'm sorry, I don't remember the date of her death, but it was about 1925, I believe. And I don't really remember her at all. Vaguely as an elderly woman, that's all. The,